congratulations to Chris Buescher. I think we can officially say RFK Racing is back now. His second win in a row, a thrilling battle with Martin Truex Jr. Chaotic race, but certainly RFK has turned the momentum up, and you see Brad Keselowski, the co-owner, up there in fourth place as well, still looking for that win at his home track as a driver. Now he's got it as an owner, however, and I'm sure that has to feel very good. Brandon, is RFK now the best of the Ford teams in the sport? We've been talking about how they've kind of been behind Chevy and Toyota in the Cup Series this year, but RFK's really come on strong these last couple of weekends with Chris Buescher.
Yeah, I don't know if they're the best Ford team yet, but they're definitely up there. And it's Chris Buescher, man. And this, I agree with Junior. He was saying that this was the next step. They needed to win multiple races in a year, but they didn't expect that it was going to happen back to back. And that's really cool for Chris Buescher. And winning it on the download, one of my favorite paint schemes with the Castrol there, really reminds me of Davey Allison, Ernie Irvin, Haviline days, kind of in a way, with the black primary and all that on there. But aesthetics aside, that was really cool to see Ford win at Michigan, of course, and retain that title there with the whole bragging rights with Ford Motor Company. But yeah, certainly right now he is the best Ford at the moment, right up there with Penske, with Blaney and Logano. Of course, Austin Cindric nowhere really to be found up there in the hunt. And then Stewart-Haas, all they've got is Kevin Harvick, and he's leaving after this year. So really still a sob story at Stewart-Haas Racing, and it's not really coming to an end yet. And then the next one you go to is Michael McDowell. I mean, besides Brad Keselowski, Michael McDowell does a great job with Front Row Motorsports. I know we talk about that a lot. And then you have to go down to 21st to find Austin Cindric. So really the odd man out there, and for the 2022 Daytona 500 winner yet again. But Brad Keselowski and Chris Buescher, it's a great pairing to see at RFK. And like we talked about last week, when they were saying they're so well knit together that if one of them does well, the other one's bound to do well as well. Like that you can't have, it's for some reason you can't have one of them do well, and because it's a two-car team, they've got so little to focus on that makes it easy to do. And so in hindsight, it was a good thing that Roush condensed down from the 5-car, 4-car mega giant they were in the 2000s down to what they are now. But man, it's been a long dry spell for Roush Fenway, and bringing Keselowski in there, it's good to see finally some of the fruits of that labor. But still, you got to hate it for the Michigan native not to get his win yet for his team. And you can see it in his face every time. Of course, he's happy for Christopher, but he really wants one of these really bad as well.
Yeah, well, I think he's finished second 3 times as a driver in his career at this track. Yeah. So, I certainly you want to talk about showing personality. I think that, the day Brad Keselowski wins Cup Series race of Michigan, I think that's going to be a victory lane.
He's going to need a lot of American flags.
I guess I should say, for the ages. But either way, going to be a great celebration if and when that happens. But he gets it done as an owner today. And I got to tell you, this is something that I think came up on Sirius XM Speedway this afternoon as well. Is RFK the top Ford team right now? And I think if you go off the last 2 weekends alone, the performances that Chris Buescher and Brad Keselowski have been putting in, looks like Keselowski is probably going to point his way in into the playoffs here, unless something really crazy happens over these next 3 weekends, which we're going to be Indy Road Course and got Daytona as the regular season finale. So you never know, but he's looking pretty strong right now in that regard. He could lock himself in by winning one of the next 3 races, which I wouldn't put past him either. But you look at Team Penske, and you mentioned Austin Cindric. Brandon, let's give him credit where it's due today. You see him up there in 12th, right between Ryan Blaney in 9th and Joey Logano in 14th. So solid run today, but he hasn't shown me that he's particularly close to, being a regular contender for wins at the Cup Series level right now. Maybe he could get another win at Daytona. He won the Daytona 500 last year, obviously, so that could be an opportunity for him. And he's a pretty good road racer, but certainly going to need a win at this point in order to, find his way into the playoffs. And you look at Stewart-Haas again, like we mentioned. You look past Kevin Harvick. Obviously, we've been talking about how much that team's been struggling this season, and We'll go on the second page of results here. Michael McDowell, we've repeatedly praised him on the grid shows this year with how much he's been getting out of that front row car, historical to everybody that's been in that car previous to him. And even when he's been in that car in previous years, he's certainly getting the most out of it. And, in some ways you have to wonder at this point with the way things are going, would Stewart-Haas almost be a downgrade? Because then you got to, take some time to develop the chemistry that you have now at front row. That's not going to happen overnight if you change teams at this point in your career. They've done very well over there with that 34 team. So, but again, I don't know that you put them on the level of, a Gibbs or a Hendrick just yet either. So I think when you look at where Ford is right now, it's been a long time since we've been able to say this about Roush, really ever since Penske made the switch after Dodge left the sport. I think they've kind of been the flagship Ford team, despite the fact that Roush operates Roush Yates engines and supplies the engines for almost all the Ford cars. Roush Fenway Racing, I should say, took a massive step back over the last several years. Then Brad Keselowski comes in after his time at Team Penske came to an end. He wanted to revitalize the team and bring it back to its former days of glory, and it looks like they're well on their way to doing just that. So we'll see how Chris Buescher can do as we get into the playoffs here. But you win 2 races in a row. That's not anything to, that's a very, very solid stat line to have in the Cup Series, and nothing to complain about on that front there. I know Brad's got to be a little bit upset that he didn't get the win himself at his home track today, but what can you say about Chris Buescher? He's doing a heck of a job there in that 17 car.
Yeah, I'd like to go back to Michael McDowell just for a moment. I think he really had he was a big contributor in the outcome of the race as well. It helped kind of, in a way, helping his manufacturer teammate, Chris Buescher, kind of being in the way there of Martin Truex Jr.'s run. He's kind of the reason that MTJ got slipped up out of one. I really think Truex was going to get him if there was nothing in front of Buescher. Even though Buescher had a fast car, I think Truex did too. I'm also just, it's a completely off topic, but I'm just so surprised how slippery Michigan was this year. It was just unbelievable, all the self-car spins yesterday, but that's besides the point. But yeah, I think Michael McDowell played a big part in the win there for Buescher.